Hey, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to another Season 7 League of Legends Champion Guide. In this one, we're going to cover AD carry Lucian, the Purifier.
Everybody dies. Some just need a little help.
Lucian's a very mobile AD carry that has really good poke in lane as long as he can line up his Q ability and hit something in front because it will have a 900 range. He has a lot of burst damage due to his ratios and his passive and a very strong mid game. As long as you go for the Yumu's build, you will get a really good early power spike and you'll already start shredding armor with your second item, the Black Cleaver. He's a pretty strong champion right now and he's very fun to play, but like everybody else, he does have his cons. So first, Lucian does have a mediocre late game. Now of course he doesn't fall off the edge of the world or anything, but he's not as strong as something like a Caitlyn or a Kog'Maw in the later stages of the game. His auto attack range is then very short as well. Sure, he does have a pretty good range from his Q, but he does have to hit something within 500 yards to get that 900 yard range. He then brings absolutely no crowd control at all, and he will rely on his other teammates doing that for him. He's also got some fairly big mana issues early on as well. If you are going for the Yumu's build, of course this will remain a thing throughout the game, but if you are going for the Essence Reaver build, then this won't really be a problem for you. For my Masteries, I like to go 18 Ferocity and 12 Cunning, grabbing either Fervor of Battle or Warlord's Bloodlust as my Keystone Mastery. Because of Lucian's passive, I usually like to go for Fervor of Battle here because it's really easy to stack and you can get a lot of attack damage. If you're against a really hard matchup instead, then you may want to take that Warlord's Bloodlust just to increase your sustain so you can actually make it out of the lane phase. You do also have the option of going 18 Cunning and grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as well, but usually if I'm looking to increase my damage, I'll go for Fervor. For my runes, I like to go for attack damage reds, armor yellows, a mix of magic resist and attack speed blues, and attack speed quints. The attack damage from our reds and attack speed from our blues and quints just adds a little bit of damage into our kit and really increase our trading and last hitting. Then of course that armor and magic resist will just give us some nice tanky stats so we're not taking too much damage in the lane phase. If you were wanting to go for a full lethality build, then you may want to take lethality reds as well just to increase the damage you'd be doing with that type of build. For your summoners on Lucian, you'll want to stick with the meta AD carry setup and grab Flash and Heal. Flash is easily the best summoner spell in the game and it gives you a very good aggressive and defensive option. As Lucian, you can combine that mobility from your kit with your Flash for some really solid positioning and hopefully get off some really good cullings. Heal is then a really solid summoner spell as well because it can be used for baiting, sustaining in teamfights, and even as an escape since it does give you bonus movement speed when activated. It's easily the best pick in the bottom lane because you can even use it to save your lane partner. Lucian's passive is Light Slinger and it's great for adding some extra burst damage into your trades and of course teamfights. After using an ability, Lucian's next basic attack within 3 seconds shoots twice, dealing between 40 and 60% AD physical damage on the second shot, increased to 100% AD against minions, which also applies on hit effects and can critically strike. The critical strike damage is halved against champions and monsters though. If Lucian's primary target is killed before the second shot can go off, he automatically shoots another enemy. So to use this passive effectively, you pretty much want to pretend you have a Trinity Force, but it doesn't even have a cooldown. Space your spells out just a little bit if you can, and make sure you do an auto attack to get this passive off in between them. It can add a ton of damage into trades, and it's part of the reason Lucian is so strong in that mid game. Lucian's Q ability is Piercing Light, and it's great for its long range damage and the fact that it does damage to everything in a line. When activated, after a 0.35 second delay, Lucian fires a laser in the direction of the target enemy, dealing physical damage to all enemies in a line. You have to use this ability on something within a 500 range, but the laser will go past that enemy and hit something even in a 900 range. This means that even though Lucian is relatively short ranged, he can even hit stuff like Caitlyn. You'll always want to be maxing this ability first because the cooldown goes down with level and the bonus AD ratio also goes up with level, making it a fantastic ability to max first. Harass the enemy champion as much as you can with this ability, and when you do need to clear minion waves, line yourself up so you hit multiple at once. Lucian's W ability is Ardent Blaze, and this can give you some nice movement speed, which makes kiting a lot easier. When activated, Lucian fires a shot that explodes in a cross pattern upon hitting an enemy or reaching the end of its path, dealing magic damage, marking enemies for 6 seconds, and granting sight of them for the duration. Lucian gains bonus movement speed for 1 second if he or an allied champion damages a marked target with basic attacks or abilities. So this is a relatively good ability because it does have a good range, it does get your passive to proc of course, and it does give you bonus movement speed, making kiting a lot easier. The major downside of course is the fact that it does do AP based damage, which means you're not going to be doing much since you're going for an attack damage build. You'll still want to get 1 point in this early on just so you do have an extra use of your passive, and of course you do get that bonus movement speed. Lucian's E ability is Relentless Pursuit, and it's great because it is a dash ability and is great for dodging skill shots, escaping, or engaging. When activated, Lucian dashes a short distance. Relentless Pursuit's cooldown was reduced by 1 second, 2 against enemy champions for each Light Slinger shot landed. Relentless Pursuit will also reset Lucian's auto attack timer so you can follow it right after an auto attack to get 2 off really quickly. So this is obviously a great ability because it is a dash and you can use it to escape or just to dodge skill shots, but it is also really good mobility in a team fight. Since the shots from your passive will lower this cooldown and we do have a fair amount of CDR as well, you can actually use this multiple times in a fight. When in the middle of a team fight, make sure you pay close attention to the cooldown on this ability because multiple uses can make you very hard to hit in a team fight. Max it second to lower that cooldown and make the cost 0 when it is at max level. Lucian's ultimate is the Culling, and it allows you to do a lot of damage from a safe distance and also 100 to 0 targets. When activated, Lucian fires shots in the target direction for 3 seconds, dealing physical damage to the first enemy they collide with. While using the Culling, Lucian cannot use basic attacks or damaging abilities and can only be interrupted by crowd control that inhibits his ability to use basic attacks, but is ghosted, can move freely, and can activate Relentless Pursuit. So although this ability only has a 20% AD ratio and a 10% AP ratio, it does have 20 to 30 shots, so if you do land them all, it can do a ton of damage. If you can manage to land all these shots on a squishy target, you will 100 to 0 them, but usually it'll be a tank in front, soaking them up. When channeling it, also remember that you can activate Relentless Pursuit if you do need a quick change so you can keep landing those shots on an enemy champion trying to run away. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then, since it is your best damaging ability, you'll want to max your Q first. We then start maxing our E ability second because it is really solid mobility and the cooldown does go down with every level. Then finally, we save our W ability for last. We just take 1 early point at level 4 so we can actually get another use for our passive and of course that movement speed. Now let's look at a couple support synergies, and first up is Blitzcrank. He's really good with Lucian early on because Lucian has really good early and mid game, and if Blitzcrank can pull in a target, usually they're going to be able to delete them rather easily. There of course is a downside though, that there will be absolutely no lane sustain at all, but as long as Blitzcrank can land those grabs, you're going to have a pretty damn easy lane phase. Next here we have Braum, and the main reason him and Lucian are such a good combo is because of his passive stun. As long as Braum can get his passive on the enemy champion, Lucian can use his passive to easily proc that stun. You can play this combo really aggressively, get that stun off multiple times, and get some really easy kills during that lane phase. He's not quite as aggressive as Blitzcrank, but he does also bring more defensives, so he works amazingly with Lucian. Next here we have Soraka, and Lucian's really going to love being with Soraka because he can trade all day long and then just get sustained up by Soraka. Usually lanes without sustain are going to lose against you guys because Lucian can use his superior early and mid game damage to trade all day long and then just get sustained back up. Soraka is sure as hell not the best offensive pick in the game, but she instead brings so much sustain it's kind of stupid. Last here we have Zilean, and he can also add some nice harassment, but also give Lucian a bunch more movement speed and even save him with his chrono shift. This combo is all about doing a lot of harassment, yet having a bunch of mobility so you can't even get hit yourselves. Whenever you do get in a really bad situation, Zilean can just simply use his chrono shift to completely change the fight anyways. Focus on harassing at first, and then use your superior mobility to go for all ins. In the lane phase, you want to try to get a CS lead over the enemy AD carry since you're strongest in the early and mid game. Try to poke the enemy with your piercing light and then hit them with both attacks from your light slinger. You'll then want to try to shove the minion wave and hit their tower as much as possible as well. You can do a lot of extra damage to it because of your light slinger, so you'll want to try and get that first tower bonus gold. Make sure you're using your Relentless Pursuit to dodge enemy skill shots and engage when their skills are on cooldown. You are very mobile, so get in range to trade as much as you can. In teamfights, you'll usually just want to attack whoever's closest to you. If there are a few, then you want to prioritize a carry of course, if possible. Make sure you use the movement speed from your Ardent Blaze and the mobility from your Relentless Pursuit to kite enemies trying to get on top of you as much as possible. The cooldown of Relentless Pursuit is reduced every time you hit somebody with a shot from your Light Slinger. As long as you're orb walking properly, you'll be able to use it rather often. Finally, if an enemy carry is chasing you, then you'll want to try to take them down with the Culling while also kiting back with your Relentless Pursuit. As long as they are pretty squishy, usually you can 100 to 0 them as long as you can land all of your shots. Now let's look at a couple hard matchups, and first up of course is Caitlyn. She of course has a really long basic attack range, and she can have some really solid lane control with her traps as well, and can zone you out of minions. Against her, you'll want to try to poke her as much as you can with your Q ability until she's low and then go for an all-in with your superior mobility. You'll also want to make sure you're dodging her Q and E ability with your Relentless Pursuit. Just a couple kills early on in the lane phase can turn this into your favor. Next we have Misfortune, and she's another really good early game champion. Since you are a pretty short range champion, she's going to be trying to bounce her Q ability on you over and over again since you will be rather close to the minions. This means you'll have to try to keep an angle on her so she's not able to bounce those shots onto you over and over again. As long as you can poke her with your Q ability and avoid these bounce shots, then you should have an easy time in the lane. Next is Varus, who has some really long range poke and the ability to lock you down. Against him, you're going to have to dodge his Q and E ability at all costs and then engage onto him afterwards. When he is level 6 and he has his ultimate, you have to be extremely careful because if he lands it, you cannot move and he can usually easily follow up with the rest of his kit and delete you. Dodge his shots as much as you can, and then go aggressive on him when they are in cooldown. Last here we have Ziggs, who's another very high damage champion that does a lot of poke damage. In this lane, you basically have to focus on dodging his Q ability over and over again, otherwise you're going to lose it rather easily. Dodge these shots, avoid his minefield, and then go aggressive on him because he's not that great close ranged. When you are level 6 and have the culling, you can easily 100 to 0 Ziggs if you do land all of your shots, so look to do that when you are level 6. Now let's finish this off with our item build, which starts with a Doran's Blade, Health Potion, and a Warding Totem. For our Penetration Core build, we take the Yumu's, the Black Cleaver, and a Phantom Dancer. The Yumu's will give you a really strong early game power spike, the Black Cleaver is great for taking off armor early on, and the Phantom Dancer gives you some nice crit, attack speed, and of course, movement speed. It also goes great with an IE later on when we do have 50% crit, increased crit damage, and of course that early penetration. For our second core build, we take the Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Infinity Edge. This will give you a bunch of CDR right off the bat, some nice mana return, some attack speed and crit, and of course that increased crit damage from the IE. It's nowhere near as strong early on, but it is a lot stronger later game. One final note on the Rapid Fire Cannon and the Phantom Dancer is that they're very interchangeable and you can take any attack speed crit item instead if you did prefer, but these are my favorite for each build. For your boot options, you have either Berserker Greaves or Ionians. I almost always go for Berserkers myself, but if you do want a CDR cap, Ionians are great as well. For our item pool, we first have our lifesteal options in the Bloodthirster and the Mercurial Scimitar. I like to go for the Bloodthirster myself because of the shield, but if you do need to break out of CCs because there's a lot of CCs on the enemy team, then you'll have to go for the Mercurial instead. Infinity Edge is also a great buy if you did take the first core build and you don't already have one. It'll add a lot of damage and keep you more relevant in the later stages of the game. Now you could also go for a full lethality build and get an Edge of Night and a Duskblade. The Edge of Night is really strong in AD carries right now since it does give you that spell shield and blocking a spell can be extremely important. Duskblade is one I don't really like to take too often on Lucian. It is viable, but I really don't like the item too much. The LDR and the Mortal Reminder are much better items I feel like in that later game. They'll give you all that armor penetration you need in the later stages of the game so you could do damage to even tanky targets. For your Yumu's full build, you take that core, get Berserker Greaves, and then an IE and a Bloodthirster. You'll do a ton of damage and hit your power spike really early on with the Yumu's and the Black Cleaver, yet you'll be a very strong late game champion as well with the Infinity Edge and the Bloodthirster. If the game goes really late and there's a lot of tanky targets, then I would replace the Yumu's with an LDR. For the crit full build, we'll take that core, get the Bloodthirster, and an LDR. This build does a lot more late game damage and has some really nice mana return, so you'll have absolutely no mana issues. The one problem with the build though is you won't hit that mid-game power spike and you won't be near as strong, but you will make up for it in the later game. But that, ladies and gentlemen, covers everything I've got for AD Carry Lucian and Season 7. Don't forget to check out the video description below for a link to my social medias, and keep in mind that I do Riot Point giveaways on my Twitter, and I do also have a Discord, so those are two you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys for watching the video, I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!